This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, December 31st, 1988, a famous game happened that a lot of people didn't really see for obvious reasons. I say that you can't see. That picture tells 1,000 words. The playoffs were on in the 1988 season between the Eagles and Bears divisional round. Chicago, with 12 wins, had home field, and a dense fog would actually roll in the second quarter, cutting visibility to 15 to 20 yards. Despite the low visibility, the Eagles were decent and all that. But we'll see what happens. Buddy Bryant was the defensive coordinator for the Bears in Super Bowl 20. But he moved on to coach for Philly. So anyway, Philly won the wildcard game and had to go to Chicago. There was a late December mix of cold and hot air in the atmosphere. But the fog actually only lasted 15 city blocks in Chicago for about 3 hours. They said that if the game was in the late afternoon or evening, then the game would not have mattered at all. Then the fog would have just dissipated. So yeah, it was a warm New Year's Eve, and then by the second quarter the fog kind of rolled in and all that. So anyway, Fred Lundquist and Terry Bradshaw were the main guys for CBS to broadcast this game. And the Bears got a touchdown pass from Mike Tomczak to Dennis McKinnon. Philly tried to score points, but Louis St. Haas, missed a field goal. And then they made a 42-yard field goal and all that. So they had a big pass to McKinnon. And then the Bears were rolling and all that. Well, the Eagles kicked another field goal to make it 7-6. And anyway, the Bears ran some plays effectively, and Neil Anderson scored a touchdown to make it 14-6. Kevin Butler would kick a field goal to make it 17-6. 2 minutes left, and it looked pretty good for the Bears. But then, somehow in some way, a fog crept in from Lake Michigan and enveloped the stadium and all that. The Bears were up 17-9 as the Bears scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and the Philly Eagles had to score 3 field goals themselves. So anyhow, the fog was so thick in the third quarter that both teams had to use their running game because receivers couldn't see the long passes. Announcers couldn't see what was happening and all that. So by the third quarter, Jim Tunney, the referee, actually had to announce the down and distance for each play on his microphone. And the NFL did monitor the conditions. They could have postponed or delayed the game, as the fog posed no danger to fans or players. Anyway, Eagles had the second half kickoff and drove the Bears 12-yard line, and then Cunningham decided to pass the ball, but was picked off by Festy Jackson. Reggie White took a massive hit off Mike Tomczak, and the Eagles made it 17-12 for another field goal. However, the Bears would need Jim McMahon, and he came in. Kevin Butler kicked the field goal, making it 20-12, and looked decent. But unfortunately, Randall Cunningham threw another bad interception, and the Bears hung on to win 20-12. The strange thing was that despite the fog and all that, Cunningham was dominant with 407 yards passing, but didn't get a touchdown and got picked 3 times. keep Byers and keep Jackson, the tight end, to their jobs and all that. Tom Zach only threw for 174 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions. Of course, he had that long touchdown. So it was at 1:30 in the afternoon Eastern Time. The weather was about 14 degrees sunny, and then fog rolled in, which was very unusual. So the Bears used a couple of touchdowns, and fortunately that was enough to beat the Eagles, who didn't score a touchdown. So Cunningham did okay, but in the end, the running game didn't really work for the Eagles. The Bears, it did, as Thomas Sanders ran for 94 yards. Despite Byers and Jackson getting 200 yard, being the 200-yard receivers for the Eagles, it didn't work as well. So anyway, it wasn't completely the only fog game in NFL history. The Pats hosted the Steelers in the divisional round, January 1987. And there was foggy conditions at Foxborough, but not as severe as the Fog Bowl. Ironically enough, Mike Tomczak was in that game too, as he was the Steelers' starting quarterback. And in 2017, the Patriots hosted the Falcons in a match, but it took place at a foggy Gillette Stadium, and NBC had to use the Skycam a lot for the Patriots to win that game. And fog games are not just for the NFL. The CFL, if memory serves everyone right, is at the 50th. Did I say the 50th Grey Cup? Yeah, the 50th Grey Cup, 1962 Fog Bowl, was when Hamilton and Winnipeg were playing, and they had fog so bad that they actually had to postpone the last 9 minutes and play the next day, which was decent. And the first time the Grey Cup was played on a Sunday. Meanwhile, in the NHL, the Sabres and Flyers in the 1975 finals had to play 2 games with fog developing because of how old Buffalo Memorial Auditorium was and how hot it was. It was a recipe for disaster and all that. Game 3 was played in a giant fog that they had to delay the game many times to make it dissipate. And Rene Robert scored a famous goal that Bernie Perron could not see. And the Sabres, they tied that series 2-2 after those 2 games, but the Philly Flyers won the next 2. And also, let's not forget that Boston, with Bruins games, used to have fog and all that because of how old Boston Garden was and no air conditioning. So, fog does play a big part in a lot of people's lives. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.